Good morning, everyone. Today we continue with the evidence-based public health, and part of these evidences are using the rates. And as we talked about last time, we talked about incidence rate, most commonly used, and we talked about prevalence and the difference between them, and that they are measures of morbidity. Today we continue with another rate which is not very common, but it's important. It's case fatality rate, CFR, case fatality rate. Fatality means death, but very quick death. Yes, fatal, killer, okay, not just normal. So case fatality rate, it's usually used, it's a special case of incidence rate or even mortality rate, special case, and it's used in diseases that are quick in fatality, killer, number one, or high killers, plus in short period of time. So here, it's a special case of incidence rate or a special case of mortality rate. Usually diseases like this, which kill people in large amounts or in high percentages, example, prions. Prions are proteins and they cause disease, mad cow disease, Jacob Creutzfeldt and Kuro, almost 100% killer. Rabies, close to 100%. Visceral leishmaniasis even. Visceral leishmaniasis, if untreated, almost 95% killer. What else? Brain amoebas. Yes? Amoebic encephalitis caused by Naegleria fowleri, acanthamoeba, Balamuthium mandrillaris. These, if they just like amoeba, but not in the intestine, in the brain. And usually they kill people for two reasons, because until now they don't have a treatment for this, and usually they use a cocktail of antibiotics and antifungals, and it depends on the luck of the patient. Okay, these diseases, all of them, we use CFR. Yes, case fatality rate. It's number of deaths of a disease in 1 year over the persons infected with that disease, not all diseases and not the whole community. Number of deaths over those infected with that disease, X or rabies, for instance, times 1,000. We usually report it in 1,000. If you want to report it in 10,000, it's up to you. 100,000, commonly it's 1,000. An example on rabies is this. In a city X, 10 persons were infected with rabies, which is a disease that with high fatality rate. By the way, we had a case 2 months ago of a baby who died. And that year, 8 died. So you're talking about 8 out of 10. So it's 8 out of 10 times 1,000. So it's 800 in 1,000. What does this indicate? It indicates that this is a very severe disease. Death very quickly and in high numbers. And usually in short period of time, despite this disease has long incubation period. If you remember in the last lecture, it can reach up to 1 year. But once you start showing the symptoms, it becomes too late. This is a very important case rate, not very commonly used, but very important. Index of severity of disease. This rate, if it's very high, then it tells you that the disease is very severe, very dangerous. Okay, good surrogate and alternative, or special case of incidence of disease, incidence rate. Better of mortality rate. Yes, because incidence is a measure of morbidity. This is measure of mortality. And when the disease is fatal, dangerous, killer, and in short period of time. Example also of NCDs, the pancreatic cancer or lung cancer. Pancreatic cancer, several months, and you pass away. Then we talk about another important rate, which is a vital statistics or a vital statistic in which you can judge or assess, or you can tell how good a health system in a country is. One of them is IMR, infant mortality rate. What's an infant? A baby, newborn, up to 1 year, 0 to 1. And usually it's reported per 1,000 live births, not dead. Dead are not accounted for. Dead are deducted from the total account. Okay, in a given year, usually they give it in 1 year, 2020, 2025. The equation goes as follows. Deaths of these newborn up to 1 year over live births, if we have 1,000 live births and 100 dead births, we don't account for the 100 dead births in 1,000. It became norm and common that we reported per 1,000. Okay, theoretically you can see 100,000, but you will have 0.000 something, so it's not something easy to deal with. So 1,000, 14, 2, 3, easier. Okay, this is an example. Look, in 2020, the number of births in a given country was 134,169 cases, of which 1,878 died before age of 1. Okay, what is the IMR? IMR is, here we have those who died, 1,878, over the denominator. So our numerator is 1,800. Our denominator, live births, is 134 minus this. See, 132, 229. Because we don't, in the denominator, we don't account for the debt. Dead babies at the end of the year, we don't include them in the denominator. Yes, but these are deaths. I mean, we are calculating the dead children. So even if they die on 31st of December, we don't put them in they are included in the denominator because we want them. But in the denominator, we deduct them. Because if we don't deduct them, we violate the definition. Imagine you added the 1,800, then it's not number of live births, it's the total number of births. Understood? This is the definition. Because if you don't deduct the number, the babies who died, then you have to say number of total births. At the end of the year, 31st of December, we check how many died. Let's say 1,100. We want to check the IMR, infant mortality rate. We take these, we put them in the numerator, but down in the denominator, we don't add them. Because if we add them, then we violate the definition. That's the idea. That's how they calculate them. And then this became, the total became 14.2 per 1,000, again, live births. If you included the 1,878 in the denominator, then we say 14.2 per total births, 1,000 total births, not live births. That's why this is the way it goes, the calculation, okay? So it's 14.2. That's why it's easier to perceive 14.2. If you want to say, I want to have it per 100,000, then it's going to be 1,420 or something. So you can have it in any number you like, but commonly used, we use 1,000 in order to perceive the number easier. That's the idea. WHO now uses not in 1 year. WHO nowadays, they use 5 years. Actually, in our country and many countries, they use both. They use 1 year and 5 years. Because I have seen the reports, 1 year and 5 years. 5 years instead of in a given year and 5 years. So you have to have the things in from 0 to 5. That WHO, this is something new. So that's why, because it's new, not many countries are adapted to it. Look, here the IMR, which is a very important vital statistic. I went to the World Bank here, selected, because in the World Bank, they give you the IMR for all countries, 196 countries. Yeah. I took selected countries. Let's have a look. The highest, the lowest, and some countries which we are interested in. Have a look. Sierra Leone, or Sierra Leone, African country, sub-Saharan, Central African Republic, sub-Saharan, you know the sub-Saharan countries, Somalia, sub-Saharan. So the sub-Saharan countries or sub-Saharan Africa, they are, unfortunately, they are underprivileged and they have very high figures in terms of IMR, MMR, and many others, okay? This area is really underprivileged, okay? Sub-Saharan Africa. Look, 88 in 1,000. Can you imagine? 88 in 1,000. 80 in 1,000. 80 in 1,000. 77. 72.7 in Somalia. Very high in 1,000. Now USA 5. Only 5. Brazil 13. Palestine 14.2. So the example I calculated a minute ago was for Palestine. Exactly. Israeli community. The Israelis 2.93, which is very good. This reflects what? Good health system. Our system is not bad, but it's in between. But 2.9 is a good health system. Finland 1.8, less than 2. Japan less than 2. Very good system. Best of all is this 152, Iceland. This is the lowest. 1.5 per 1,000. That reflects mainly good health system. Okay. This is IMR. That's why from these statistics, vital statistics, like IMR, you can judge health system, how good it is or how bad it is. Now we will go to another one, which is also important. MMR, maternal mortality rate. Maternal means mother, okay? A concept is maternal death. What do you mean by maternal death? It's the death of the pregnant lady during pregnancy or 42 days after. Regardless of the duration of pregnancy, it can be 6 months, it can be 7, it can be 9. And regardless of the place of pregnancy, it can be normally in uterus, or it can be abnormally, like ectopic pregnancy in the fallopian tube or other places. That's the definition adopted by WHO and many specialists. Put this aside now. Look, frequency of female deaths, mothers usually, while pregnant or within 42 days of delivery, regardless of duration and cause, in a given period, usually 1 year. Most of the days in textbooks, in health reports, and literature and publications, 1 year usually. Per 100,000, not per 1,000 like MMR. So MMR is 100,000 per live birth, children. So this is a ratio. It's not a rate. What's the difference between a rate, MMR, a rate, or MMR, a ratio? And which one we use most commonly nowadays? Let's have a look. In a given year, number of deaths of women during pregnancy over live births, babies. This is why we call this ratio. Why? Because you have the numerator up, women. You have the denominator down, babies. Two different categories. Mothers, babies. This is a ratio. Ratio of this to this. Mothers to babies. That's a ratio. And this is nowadays most commonly used in WHO. If you go to WHO, go to the website, mainly ratio. Okay? Times 100,000. This represents MMR, when you use babies, represents risk of pregnancy. How risky the pregnancies in that country are. Okay? Obstetric risk, we call it. Rate, like this, rate if you have the same category. Numerator, your numerator is women, up. Down denominator is also women. Women to women, this is rate. Or babies to babies, this is rate. Okay, this is the idea. So we have rate, women to babies, different categories, a ratio. And we have rate, same categories, women over women. And usually the women, not all women, the women of the childbearing age, 15 or 14 to 59, during which the woman or the lady or the female can conceive and get pregnant. Not old ladies and not very young ladies, girls, let's say. Okay, so the ratio is the one that is commonly used by WHO. Okay, this is an example here. This is an example. Selected countries again from World Bank. If you are interested, you can go to the World Bank and see all the countries. But here we show you the highest, the lowest, and some countries. South Sudan, Juba. Chad, Jamina, Chad, next to Sudan and south of Libya. Sierra Leone, also the same. So you are talking about more than 1,000 in these countries. More than 1,000 women die every 100,000 live births. Then Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, also close to 1,000. If you go to the Brazil, 60 per 100,000. Palestine, 27. Every 100,000 live births in Palestine, 27 ladies die. High, low, it's in between. USA, 19. Japan is 5. They don't have lots of pregnancies in Japan. They are old age. The pyramid in Japan, the population pyramid is somehow mutilated. It's upside down. Okay. Israeli community 3. 3 ladies die, 3 women, they die every 100,000, which reflects good health system. Japan, the same. Finland. Italy is the best. See? 2 every 100,000 live births. You can go and check the rest of the countries if you are interested in any country. That's an example. Look, town X has a population of 40,000, half of which are women. Of these women, 20,000, 10,000 are childbearing age. Yes, fertile, 15 to 49, they can get pregnant. Last year, 20 women gave birth to 20 live babies. So if I'm asking you about the rate, what will be your numerator? Dead women. Your denominator, rate, also women. Okay? Also women. So 2 of the women died. So this is the first. 2, this is your numerator. Over 10,000, these are the women, and not any women. The women that can get pregnant. Okay? So 2 over 10,000 times 100,000. It's 20 per 100,000 women in childbearing age. Okay? That's one. If you go to ratio, which is most commonly used, look, 60 total number, half of which 30,000 are women. 42 women in the town became pregnant last year, 42. 2 cases of stillbirth. And I'm asking you again here, I'm asking you about the ratio. So you have to remember that we have women up and babies down. Okay? So 2 cases of babies, 2 babies died during pregnancy. 104 women gave birth to 140 babies. 2 of the women died. So these are the ones. 2 women died. Over. Why not 142? These died. These 2 died, not accounted for. They died. So only 140. Okay. Live births, 140. Times this, then 1,428, which is very, very high. That's hypothetical. This is a hypothetical example. Even in Juba and South Sudan, they have 1,200. So this may be somewhere else. Okay, just hypothetical. This is a ratio. I am asking you, what's your name? What's your name? Abdurrahman. I am asking you about the ratio. Ratio, numerator is women. Denominator down is babies, live birth, babies. In the previous example, I asked you about the rate. Your numerator is dead women, and your denominator is also women, rate for rate, the same category. Here, different ratios, different categories. Women up and babies down. Live babies, not any babies. Okay, understood? Now we go to something else, the PPT. If you remember, we had this in the definition, and we talked about distribution, and that distribution is governed by the PPT model, person, place, time. And we said that this gives us the behavior of the epidemic or the behavior of the disease, how it behaves. Yes, and it explains the disease. So these here, the PPT, if you look at them carefully, they might lead you to the cause, the distribution. But here in epidemiology and public health, usually we have causation is difficult to establish. To say cause is not easy. It's not easy. Difficult. Cause. This causes that. But we use the association, high association or low association. Okay. Association, and not only association, also group association. So in epidemiology and public health, we don't look at individual people. We look at the community, population. So usually we have group association. Individual association is difficult because if you reach individual association, you are saying that this is causation. Individual, you and you and you and her. Okay, but we look at you all, not individuals. Okay, so this is group association. PPT model might lead us, which explains the behavior of the disease, might lead us to the cause and the etiology of the disease. I'll give you an example here. We explained this before, but never mind to repeat it. Person, demography, the age, the sex, the race, all of these, they affect the disease. Diseases are in women, diseases are in men, in old age, in elderly, in young, in babies. In race, some diseases are in Jews, some in Armenians, some in Arabs. And cis also, socioeconomic status, how much money you have, what's your education, and what's your job. All of these are also factors that can affect the disease. Yes, how much money you have, money affects everything almost. Okay, or exposure like smoking, if you are a smoker or not, you are obese or not, you are physically active or inactive. All of these are factors that are related to you as a person. Yes, the person. Then place, geography, city, village, camp, country, and even in the social media. You have a community, you have a Facebook community, 1,000 people, different countries, different cities, different cultures, different colors. All of these, they might affect your health. And we know of many cases in which some people incited or encouraged babies or children to commit suicide on the social media. Yes, to commit suicide, or to make child abuse, or women abuse, or adultery. Adultery, bad things, sexual things on the all of this is your community. This is a place. So the virtual community, it can affect our health also nowadays, and very much. Many people they just spend tens of hours on their mobile. Yeah, Facebook and Twitter and this and that. Okay. And then time, day and night. Yes, fever at night is very severe. For instance, more severe than day. If you remember last time we talked about viral meningitis and how it peaks in summer and goes trough down in winter and so on. We talked about leishmaniasis, how it's in winter, in Jericho in winter, in summer very low cases and so on. So time plays role. Holidays also, feast even, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, Christmas also. People eat wildly in these times, in Christmas and feast. People eat after Ramadan. The Muslims, they eat a lot. And yes, okay, salty, yes, they're telling me salty fish, cakes. I mean, you exaggerate, and then you pay the price in terms of health. So time plays role, yes. These here, person, place, times, and what's under the details, we call them, if they cause the disease or help the disease to exist, we call them risk factors. This is the most commonly used definition or word. Risk markers, not very much used, but it's okay. Risk markers, risk indicators, okay, it's risk indicator, but risk factor is the most commonly used word. Okay, what is a risk factor? Look, this is a risk factor, an aspect, an issue known, or a factor known to be associated with health or adverse health condition, in other words, with disease and illness, and important to be prevented. If you smoke, you have to stop, otherwise you get lung cancer. Obese, you eat a lot, you have to, not stop, but minimize, or otherwise you'll get CVD, cardiovascular diseases, and so on. If you are lazy, no exercise, you have to practice exercise so that you become more healthy, and so on. So these should be prevented. Risk factors, behaviors, eating behaviors, sleeping behaviors, running behaviors, lifestyle. Some people they like all the time to be clean and neat. Some people they don't care. Socioeconomic status, how much money you have, and all these stuff. environment even. What's around you? Do you have a chemical factory around you? Do you have a stone sewing around you? Yes, quarry, we call it. Radiations, all of these, even animals, stray dogs. Do you have an airport around you? Are you living next to an airport where you cannot sleep at all? All of these are risk factors for certain diseases. And some of them, they might cause more than one disease. Diabetes mellitus, for instance. It can lead to cardiovascular disease. It can lead to kidney disease. Yes, renopathy. Neuropathy also, neuropathy, what else also? Your eyes, retinopathy. All of the sleeping habits for maybe some people, they don't sleep, they sleep after 3 o'clock and they don't sleep, they sleep only a few hours, also that can lead to a disease. Yeah, you have to sleep as an adult at least 6 hours a day. Yes, baby maybe 12 hours, 10 hours. Yeah. Smoking also, lung cancer. And this is just 2 examples of many out there. This is an example of lung disease, smoking and lung cancer in USA. In USA, between 30s and 40s and 50s, let's just apply the model person, place, time. Between the 30s and the 50s, they found out that lung cancer is associated more to women, more in men than women. Why? Because at that time, it was a taboo that women smoke. Only men smoked. And then the tobacco company said, no, we want more money. So let's drag. Yes, bring the women to the idea. So they incited and they encouraged women to smoke. And women smoked. And then women got lung cancer. Nowadays, yeah, women smoke. Still, we have a proportion of women who are smoking. Okay. Place. In places where they grow lots of tobacco, more smokers. Therefore, more lung cancer. In Afghanistan, they grow lots of opium. So the rate of drug addicts or drug abusers is very high. Previously, not now maybe. Yeah, in the Taliban era, maybe less. And time, 1930 to 1950, these all occurred. Okay. Again, this is group association, not individual. We are talking about the community. We are looking at the community, the US community, the American community, but not to the American individuals. Because if you look at the individuals, the mission will become tough. Because then if it's individual association, then it's causation. And not easy to prove. Not easy to prove, okay? Are sex, age, time, place, risk factors, the change between sexes or the change between ages, are they risk factors? Sometimes they are, and sometimes the change in the rates is fake. More in men than women. Why? Because at that time only men smoked. But now if you let both of them smoke equally and then look at the rates, maybe you will find exactly. So sometimes the change is not real. It's artifactual. It's fake. And sometimes it's real. Let's have a look. Let's explain more about this. Is it real or artifactual? In order to tell that the change in rates between, let's say, sexes or in distribution in general, we have to have 3 criteria here. And the 3 of them should be met. First, change in interest in identifying the disease. Sometimes there are diseases in which people die all the time, so people lose interest. Or like flu, most of the time people don't die from flu, yes? So if he gets a flu, would you care? Not very much, 2-3 days and it'll be normal. So they change of interest, okay? I will give you an example in a minute. Change in ability to identify the disease. Like, for instance, every now and then we have a new test. We have a new method of test, a new technology of test. And this new technology manages to detect more cases, means more sensitive, more specific. Okay, so sometimes it's not because the disease is changing, because your tests are changing. That's the one. And third, change in disease definition. Sometimes on the run of time, the disease definition changes. And sometimes not only by the run of time, even in the same country, like USA, you have two associations taking care of that disease. And these two associations, they are different. They have different definitions. If I tell you WHO considers hemoglobin A1C for diabetes control as 7.5%, and then the Americans say it's 6.5, there is 1% difference, although it's the same disease. So the WHO is different from the American. Okay, so sometimes the disease definition changes by the run of time, or even within the same country because of difference in associations or leagues or unions taking care of this disease. Okay, so these three have to be met in order to identify if the change in the rate or the distribution is real or fake, artifactual. Let's give you an example of the disease, AIDS. AIDS. Look, new treatment, increased interest. People usually don't care very much about AIDS because they know that this person is going to die. But every now and then we have a new drugs, a new medicine coming out. And this increases interest and hope. So there is difference. People, for instance, die less because we have a new drug coming, not because of the disease itself, because of a new drug that is on the market now. Also, a new test to detect HIV. If you bring 100 samples of HIV persons who were infected in 1985, 40, 50 years ago, and bring the samples now, to our time now, and test the 100, maybe in 1985, only 20 were positive. But now, in our technology, when you have PCR, you have next generation sequencing and all these advanced tests, not 20, maybe you can get 50. So there is an increase, not because of the disease, because the advance in technology, yes? So the disease is not because there is a change in the disease, but because of something outside. And finally, the same happened for the change of the definition over time. Definition of AIDS in 1981 in San Francisco, at that time when they discovered the first cases, is not like the definition now, different. And if you go to ICD-10, International Classification of Disease, book 11, 10, 9, you will see differences in definitions over time. So because of all these differences, the change in rates in distribution of HIV is fake, is artifactual. Okay, that's the idea, artifactual. If you go to lung cancer, no change in interest. All the time we had interest in the disease because the disease is severe, killer, but also we can save the patient if we diagnose it earlier and we can do the surgery or chemotherapy. We know it's surgery or chemotherapy. It's well known. Okay. Or no change in test. All the time, diagnosis of the lung cancer depended on imaging, radiology imaging. X-ray, started with X-ray, then MRI, CT, PET even, positron emission, and that's all. Maximum you can get biopsy. So all the time it was like this. Change is very little, okay? And definition, the change also very little. ICD-10, ICD-11, ICD-9, ICD-8, these international classification of disease, it was all the time almost the same. It's lung cancer, a mass in the lung growing up, and that's finished. Okay, so that's why, because the changes are all the time not very radical, not very drastic. So the lung cancer, the change in the distribution is real. That's just an example. As we were talking, I mentioned several times ICD, ICD-10, ICD-11. This is International Classification of Disease, ICD. And if you go just write Google International Classification of Disease, it will take you to WHO, and it will take you to the website which has this. And this is almost, I remember, it was 8,000 pages. Yes. and it contains all the diseases in the world in terms of codes and definitions. Why did they use this? So that they can standardize coding system and unify the definition of disease. So the disease in our country is the same as in India, the same as in South Africa, the same as in Nigeria, and the same as in Colombia. This start, yes, I know what you mean. This started in 1855 when they just realized that each culture, each country have different differences in definitions. So they said in 1855, they met in Paris and they said, we want to have something that unifies the definition all over the world. So that when I go to every country, I am diagnosed here with a disease. When I go to USA and Canada, and I will have the same diagnosis, not different diagnosis, which means the same treatment, almost. Okay, so this is the reason. Example, leukemia, C90, so it starts with a capital letter and a figure, numbers and letters. C90 to C95, leukemia. Of course, you have C90.1, C90.2, C92.1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can have all the leukemias within these here. That's why it's 8,000 pages. With definitions, the definition includes symptoms, definition includes treatment, definition includes diagnosis, and all of these. And it's updated by WHO almost every decade, 10 years, sometimes 20, 15, but 10 years. So I remember when it was ICD-9 in 2000, then ICD-10, then now it's ICD-11. Okay, and these, by the way, you can, if you have a hospital, you can buy this as a software and incorporate it in your system, and this definition becomes part of your system. Of course, no single physician will know everything here. You just have to go to your specialty. If you are an oncologist, go to these here. A gynecologist, go to that there. Pediatrics, or for the children, and so on. Hematology, hematologist. Parasitology. So you have no single doctor will know all of these together. You have to be specialized because it's something huge thing, a huge effort. Just an example of what we had about the lung cancer and smoking in USA in the 30s and till 60s. Is mortality due to old age? That was the question. Adults and elderly. Of course, it's difficult to compare adults and elderly because of the nature, because when you get old, everything changes, your systems change, your DNA multiplication changes, the errors and the mutations become very high, the rate. That's why you get cancers and leukemias. So in order to compare between adults and elderly, they made standardization. Exactly as if you are comparing between, let's say, Mali and Japan. Life expectancy in Mali is, let's say, very low. In Japan, is very high. Population structure in Mali, it's all young. In Japan, it's all old. You cannot compare this with that. You have to make a standardization first to be able to compare. And the standardization is beyond the scope of this lecture. We have direct and indirect. This is an epidemiology. Go to Goodness Epidemiology, and there is a chapter on this standardization of rates. And when they did this standardization of rates by age adjustment, they found group association, not individual. They found that still after standardization, still there is difference in rates. So they said that the increase in elderly, the increased rate of cancer in elderly is real, not just because of old age. And very important, all the time when we talk about association, we have population association, we look at the community and not individual, because individual is difficult, and I will show you in a minute why is it difficult. Okay, so here, group association, we have studies for group association. We call it population comparisons or ecological studies, special studies for this. Studies use information on groups, not individuals. We are not interested in you and her and him. We are interested in the community as all. Not all group associations are individual. Not all smokers get lung cancer, definitely. That doesn't mean I am promoting smoking. 90% of those who smoke get cancer, 90% or even more. So I'm not in favor of tobacco companies. if you succeed in establishing this group association, then you will go to individual association. If you succeed in individual association, then this is causation. How do we do this? Look, if you remember, this is the pre-cycle, which we started the chapter with: problem, etiology, recommendation, implementation, and evaluation. We have 3 requirements so that you can reach to causation, individual. 3 requirements: requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3. Let's have a look at these requirements. Requirement 2, cause precedes effect, comes before. And finally, requirement 3, alter cause, alter effect. Let's have an example so that you can understand. Requirement 1, cause associated with effect. Those with cancer smoke. All of those, 99% of those who have cancer, they smoke. So there's association between the cause, smoking, and the cancer. 99% of those who have cancer, if you look back, they smoke. That's one. Cause precedes effect. Yes, which means that you smoke, then you get the cancer, not the other way around. And then alter effect, alter cause, alter effect. Stop smoking, then the rates of lung cancer in the community will go down. So this is what I mean, the 3 requirements. How do we achieve these requirements? We need studies. We need 3 types of studies. Let's have a look at them. Look, first, we make simple study for requirement 1. Simple study, we call it, it's an observational study. We call it case control study, retrospective. That's simple one. It might take you a year or 2. Then we go for cohort study, more advanced cohort study. This might take you 10 to 15 years. See how difficult? Lots of time. Cohort study. If you succeed, then we go to the higher one, to the best, which is RCT. This is for requirement 2. Requirement 3, this is mainly in the lab. This is mainly in the lab because you are going to remove nicotine or remove smoking and see how the cancer cells behave. Yeah. So we go to something called C, randomized clinical trial, RCTs. These are the best studies you can ever have, but they are expensive, time consuming. You need another 10 to 20, 15 years. So we are talking about tens of years or decades. And so lots of time plus lots of money and lots of effort. And you need expertise. So in order to establish this, then you reach causation. By the time you reach causation, decades have elapsed, millions have been paid. Maybe scientists have come and gone because it's a very maybe one scientist cannot reach out to here. And this is exactly what happened to smoking and lung cancer. And not only that, those companies which you are trying to prove that their products are very bad, like Starbucks or McDonald's or KFC, and here tobacco companies, they will not just look at you and stand still. They will fight you and they will hire new scientists, other scientists, to undermine your efforts and to prove that your results are just baseless and useless. And that's what happened with the tobacco companies. But at the end, after 50, 60 years, they managed to prove that smoking causes lung cancer. So by the time you reach causation, lots of effort. Okay. I think we have to stop here. And this is it for today. Any questions before we go? When you reach causation, it becomes individual. But it needs lots of time. Okay, other questions? Don't forget about the quiz tomorrow, yes? Have a nice time and thank you.